Of the regular meeting of the Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors, December 7th, 2021. And I'd like to make clear for the record that this meeting is being conducted as permitted under AB 361 in an effort to protect public health, prevent the spread of COVID-19, and because state and/or local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing. The public may view this board meeting online or virtually. The public may also attend the meeting in person. The meeting will be streamed live on the district's website, cvwd.org. As stated on the agenda, members of the public who wished to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the district or any item on the agenda may provide comments in person at the meeting or via Zoom. And there will be plenty of opportunity to make comments as we move through, including the public hearings during open session. I will now call, so then the process for considering action items, we will have at least one board member attending remotely, so we'll make sure to call on that and any remote members and any remote participants as we move through the agenda, and we will do roll call votes on everything as long as we have somebody attending remotely. So roll call, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
President Powell?
Here.
Vice President Estrada? Vice President Estrada?
Star 6.
Star 6, unmute yourself. I see him on. Okay, we'll come back. Director Bianco?
Here.
Director Aguilar?
Here.
And Director Nelson?
Here.
Thank you. He might be jumping onto closed session, so I'll make a note of that.
I just got a text that says I just got kicked out of Zoom.
That was a couple minutes ago.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, and let us know when he's on. And then please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Do we have any members of the public wishing to make public comment before we adjourn to closed session? Seeing none, hearing none. At this time, the board will recess into closed session to discuss the items listed on the agenda. We will reconvene to open session at 8:30 a.m. or soon thereafter, and it may be closer to 9 just because of the amount of items in the closed session, but could be as early as 8:30. And at the time, we will reopen open session and report out of closed session, as well as considering the remainder of the agenda. All right, let's go. Well, good morning. Good morning. We are, the regular meeting is in open session is hereby reconvened, and we do not have any reportable action from our closed session. Thank you for waiting, for those of you who got here at 8:30. I just wanted to take a moment before we get into business here to mention that one of our former directors, Franz de Klotz, passed away on Saturday. He was a close friend of mine for 34 years. He has a wife, Judy, and 3 children, one of whom, his oldest, Emerson, works here in the lab at CVWD. But it's a great loss. He was loved by many. And so if you could just say a prayer for the family, for Judy and the kids. Really terrible loss. Okay. Do we have any members of the public wishing to comment at this time, recognizing we will have opportunities for comment on specific items as we move through the agenda? Hearing none. Do we have, Sorry?
Mr. President, if I can, we do have quite a few attendees via Zoom, so I would just like to ask.
Members of the public wishing to comment at this time, recognizing we will have opportunities for comment on specific items as we move through the agenda.
I'm looping.
Okay, I think Director Strada's having a couple issues. I had to mute him. Let me try this. Director Strada, if you can hear me, I believe you must have a live stream to YouTube and your audio on your laptop. If you can't hear us, try adjusting your settings on your computer, because I do see from other panelists that they are able to hear us. And then I will continue on. We do have members of the public online. I would just like to ask if there's anybody who would like to provide general public comment to please use the raised hand feature. If you have no general public comment, then please use the raised hand feature when we get to the item that you are interested in speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Okay, I do not see anybody online, and I do have two. If you have no general public comment, then please use the raise hand feature when we get to the item that you.
Technology.
Is that Director Strada? It is. Okay.
Do we have any additions, deletions, or adjustments to today's agenda? I'm not aware of any.
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Consent calendar consists of items 8A through N, as in Nancy.
Mr. President, I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call vote.
I just worry that we're going to have feedback, so please bear with us. President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada, Vice President Estrada, we're voting on consent. Okay, we'll go ahead and skip Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you. 4-0.
It's either 4-0 or 5-0, depending. It passed nonetheless. Presentations and recognitions. I see Katie sitting back there with some family. We have this beautiful proclamation. You know, I just want to say I've really enjoyed working with you, Katie. I learned of that you're moving on, and I wish you so well, but I'm also sorry to lose you here, but we're not really losing you. You're going to be somewhere, but I'm not going to read the whole thing, right? You've just been really a great member of the team, and I'm going to ask you to come on up. If we have any other directors that wish to make a comment at this time, it would be a good time for that.
I'll sure jump in. Katie, you've been just terrific for the district, and it's our big loss, but it's not surprising that you maybe go on to bigger and better things, because you have certainly done great and big things here at our district. You've been a great voice of reason and facts, and in a very communicative way that people are easy to understand. And you've done a great job with dealing with customers and HOAs and projects, and we've been so fortunate to have you here, and we're better for it. And good luck in your future. We know you'll do well.
Anyone else? Before I turn it over to Katie?
No, I was looking to take a picture. I want to take a picture. Come on, let's go take a picture.
You want all this? Yeah.
You're in the back.
Come
No,
So, Katie, any comments?
I will make a comment, and I'll be brief. I'll just say, thank you to the board and especially to Jim for all the opportunities. I've had a really wonderful career here at CBWD, and I'm very grateful for it. But I think the staff here at CBWD really deserves to be acknowledged. We have an incredible team of really smart, really hardworking people here at the district, and I think that we as the leadership and the whole leadership team is really lucky to have them. And that especially extends to my water management and outreach and education teams, who have been so incredible to work with, and any success or accomplishment that I have had here at the district is directly attributed to that team and all of their hard work.
Thank you.
And I would just like to thank Katie's family for allowing us the opportunity to share our wishes.
Okay.
President Powell, can you hear me?
Yes.
There
Now
he
we
is.
can.
Yep, we brought him in on a phone, so he should be there.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Costello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Director Estrada. I believe he'd like to make a comment. Katie? Director Estrada?
Well, maybe you can catch up with her later.
Unfortunately. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird for me over here because I'm streaming to YouTube, and the YouTube is, I think, a few seconds
Yes.
lagging,
Yes.
and so I'm trying to figure out, what's real time. So, anyways, I just I wanted to make some comments about Katie. I think you had called for directors to make comments if they felt like making a comment, and I just well, I'm sorry that I'm not there in person. I wish I would have been there. I got jealous right now when everybody took a picture up there in front. But I just want to say that I really enjoyed working with Katie. I've been working with her not just through the district, but also through just my regular job. And so I've been able to work with her for many years now. And she was a tremendous help to me personally at the district. I know she did a lot of great things for the district as a whole as well. And I'm really happy for her. I wish her the best. And but at the same time, as you mentioned, it's sad that we're losing her, and it's going to be really hard for us to find a replacement that's able to do everything that she was doing. But anyways, just want to wish her the best and congratulate her. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Estrada. Okay, so
Public hearing.
we're on to the public hearings. We have two. We'll do the Mission Creek first, and then we'll do the Indio Subbasin. So at this time, staff will provide a presentation on the 2022 Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan update. Following the presentation, we will open the public hearing to receive input from the public. And I believe we have Zoe Rodriguez Del Rey that's going to make the presentation. Good morning, Zoe. And I'll just say for Katie, now that you're back in the room, Vice President Estrada made some very heartfelt and kind comments, warm comments towards you. He probably didn't realize you had stepped out, but I'll be sure to watch it. Yeah, you can watch it. Thank you. Go ahead, Zoe.
Okay. Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. So today the board will consider for adoption two SGMA alternative plan updates that were approved by the Department of Water Resources for the Mission Creek Subbasin and Indio Subbasin. Both plans must be updated every 5 years, and this is the first 5-year update that must be submitted by January 1 of 2022. A presentation providing a summary of the plans was included with the board item, and today I will be covering selected slides from those presentations. This material was also provided to the board at a study session on August 3rd. So with that, I'll go ahead and begin the presentation for the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan Update. So the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan Update has been prepared collaboratively by the groundwater sustainability agencies of the Mission Creek Subbasin, which are Coachella Valley Water District and Desert Water Agency, as well with collaboration with Mission Springs Water District, who together make up the Mission Creek Subbasin Management Committee. The plan covers the area in green, which is the Mission Creek Subbasin itself, as well as areas outside the Mission Creek Subbasin that currently receive or may in the future receive groundwater pumped from the Mission Creek Subbasin. Briefly, the goals of the plan are to maintain sustainable water resources to reliably meet demand for existing and future beneficial uses in the Mission Creek Subbasin in a cost-effective manner while avoiding undesirable results. So among the plan objectives are to avoid undesirable results, which are significant and unreasonable impacts caused by groundwater use, including, these are the ones that are relevant to the Mission Creek Subbasin: groundwater level declines, reductions in groundwater storage, land subsidence, and water quality degradation. Specifically, the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan Update sets what are called measurable objectives and minimum thresholds, which in the case of this subbasin are based on 2009 water levels, when the basin was experiencing its lowest water levels. And these will also be used as proxies to assure sustainability with regards to storage and subsidence. These thresholds will be tracked and reported annually at 9 key wells that have been designated that provide coverage in the subbasin. The plan update evaluated projected growth within the planning area based on the latest available data, which at the time was the, or currently is the Southern California Association of Government Projections, which project an increase of about 25,000 people or 47% increase in population by 2045. This growth is projected to increase water demand by just above 5,600 acre feet per year, or 37%. And so the consultants that worked on this alternative plan update, Wood Environmental and Kennedy Jenks, looked at 4 management scenarios, which included a baseline scenario in which no additional projects or management actions were implemented, and looked at these scenarios with and without applying climate change assumptions, both for local and imported water supplies. And then also looked at additional scenarios implementing projects and management actions that are planned in the near term, as well as by the end of the planning horizon, which is 2045. So, as can be seen in this hydrograph, near-term projects are expected to maintain groundwater sustainability, while longer-term projects like Sites Reservoir increase reliability by participation in Delta Conveyance Project will provide the resilience needed to meet future uncertainties and potential growth beyond 2045. In this next slide shows those same projections for all of the 9 key wells that will be reported on an annual basis, showing similar results. And the plan will be implemented using an adaptive management approach to ensure ongoing sustainability. This will include annual reporting, as we have been doing with Sigma annual reports, to show how we are performing relative to projections, as well as future evaluation and updates of this plan as required by SIGMA every 5 years. So in conclusion, the projects and management actions like conservation, securing additional supplies, and groundwater replenishment that have been implemented have maintained sustainability in the Mission Creek Subbasin over the last decade. And as shown by the analysis in the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan Update, the planned projects and management actions will continue to maintain groundwater sustainability, even in with projected future growth and even with implementing assumptions about climate change that reduce available supplies. So that concludes the presentation for the Mission Creek Subbasin. Following the public hearing, I'll do a similar presentation for the Indio Subbasin. But before opening the public hearing, is there any questions? I'm happy to address those.
Thanks, Ari.
Thank you. This is the time and place fixed for the public hearing on the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan Update. I officially open the public hearing. It doesn't say that in the script, but that's what's happening, right?
Yes, that's fine.
Clerk Bermudez, have we completed proper notification of this public hearing?
Yes, Mr. President, a notice of this public hearing was published within the jurisdiction of the district on November 30th, 2021. Furthermore, notice of availability for the review of the 2022 Indio Subbasin Water Management Plan update and of this public hearing was provided to all on the stakeholder list, including the cities and counties within the Indio Subbasin.
Thank you. And actually, I see that we opened the public hearing after Jeff makes his comments. So I will defer to legal counsel regarding the purpose of today's public hearing.
A public hearing is being held in order to provide members of the public and other interested entities with the opportunity to be heard in connection with proposed adoption of the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan update. Following the public hearing, the Board of Directors will consider adoption of the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan update as amended by changes incorporated by the Board of Directors as a result of input received, if any, at the public hearing.
Thank you. I hereby declare the public hearing open and will request that those wishing to speak, please give your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We will now hear from anyone who wishes to come forward to speak. And if you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand button and the clerk will call on you. Do we have any cards filled out for this?
No, I believe Mrs. Kellermanis is for the next item, correct?
Right.
She's, okay.
Okay.
So we do not, and let me just double check here on Zoom. I do not have any raised hands for this item. Let's give them a couple seconds in case we have any other participants online. Please use the raise hand feature to speak, to request to speak. And I do not see any, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, seeing that we don't have anyone wishing to speak on this matter, Clerk Bermudez, have we received any written communications?
Mr. President, yes, the district received a couple written letters, and those were provided and distributed to the board via email, and copies of those are available for the public to review and will be included as part of the record.
Thank you. I'm prepared to close the public hearing. However, before I do that, I would like to provide an opportunity for anyone else wishing to provide public input to do so. Is there anyone else wishing to speak today? If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand button, and the clerk will call on you.
Last chance. I do not see any requests to speak, Mr. President.
Thank you. In that case, I hereby declare the public hearing closed. Do we have any questions by members of the board? And I'll start with Vice President Estrada, who's remotely attending. We might have lost that connection.
I show him on. Director Estrada, can you hear us? Okay.
No?
No.
If we hear from him, we'll listen. Any other board members have questions or comments?
Sure, I have a few comments. I am really.
I'm sorry, President Powell, I don't have any comments or.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
And I figured out the audio issue, so I think I'm good now.
Okay, good. Welcome back.
So I just have a few comments. I look at the, some of the letters that we've gotten about this, and it's really good to see the cooperation we have with the public agencies like the Mission Subbasin. It's good to know that this is an adaptive management plan, and Zoe, I think, reiterated that, and as we look at these objectives and the minimum thresholds that we have, certainly we have benchmarks by which we're going to reach over time, and we can take action through that period.
Director Nelson, I apologize for interrupting. Your mic is not on. Thank you.
So I was just saying that I appreciate the collaborative work that we have with other public agencies in the Mission Creek Subbasin, and that this is an adaptive management plan that we have solid benchmarks by which to make adjustments as we go along. Across the state, these groundwater sustainability plans are being approved and being commented on by both the state board and DWR, and ours appears to be very much at the top of the list in terms of our ability to manage the plan. And so hats off to the district on putting together, I think, a good plan for moving forward.
Thank you. Any other comment from the board members?
I would just add to Director Nelson's comments that I think the plan speaks for itself in terms of the results of how we've been able to, I think, in a really positive way, manage our resources here in the valley. We have no subsidence. We've seen increase in the aquifer levels, et cetera. And I think several of the comments that we received related to perhaps an understatement of climate and drought conditions. And I think that was actually addressed quite well in the plan and can be modified as circumstances change. So I appreciate the work you've done on this too, Zoe.
Thank you. Anything else? You're good? I'm good too. Good. Well, then at this time, the board is asked to consider the adoption by resolution of the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan update and to authorize staff to provide notification of this approval and adoption to the Department of Water Resources, including a copy of the resolution, the adopted alternative plan update, and any additional information and documentation required by law, and to direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the Riverside County Clerk within 5 working days of adoption of the resolution.
I'll make that motion to approve the resolution as you just described, President Powell, and to move that forward.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Aguilar. And so we're going to do a roll call vote. I think hopefully the connections are good. Go ahead, roll call vote.
President Powell?
Aye.
Vice President Estrada?
Aye.
Director Bianco?
Aye.
Director Aguilar?
Aye.
And Director Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
So that passed 5-0. Next, we move on to the Indio Subbasin. At this time, staff will provide a presentation on the 2022 Indio Subbasin Water Management Plan Update, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act Alternative Plan. Following the presentation, we'll open the public hearing to receive input from the public. Go ahead, Zoe.
Okay, so similar presentation and similar approach for the Indio Subbasin. So the following slide shows the plan area. The plan was prepared collaboratively by the groundwater sustainability agencies of the Indio Subbasin, including Coachella Valley Water District, Coachella Water Authority, Desert Water Agency, and Indio Water Authority. The planning area includes the whole of the Indio Subbasin, as well as adjacent areas that currently or in the future may receive groundwater pumped from the Indio Subbasin. The plan, similar to Mission Creek, addresses all 6 undesirable results, being responsive to recommendations received from the Department of Water Resources during their review. And also sets minimum thresholds or sets thresholds for undesirable results for groundwater levels and using those same as proxies for storage and land subsidence. For the Indio Subbasin, the thresholds were based on historical low groundwater levels as measured at 57 key wells throughout the basin. As you can see here, this provides very thorough coverage of the Indio Subbasin. And the GSAs will monitor these levels and provide annual reporting to respond as needed to ensure ongoing sustainability. So similarly, this plan addresses projected growth, which was evaluated using the latest data provided by SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments. And that growth was translated into projected growth in water demand, which is approximately 50,000 acre feet, or when looking at total use, 8%. But I do want to note that the majority of projected growth is in the municipal sector. So with regards to municipal use, this is a projected 30% increase in municipal use. The plan update also evaluated projected supplies and applied climate change assumptions to both local as well as imported supplies from Colorado River and State Water Project. For local supplies, as shown here, it results, looking at more recent drier trends, it results in a reduction in natural recharge from mountain front recharge and stream flow. And then with regards to imported supplies, for State Water Project, we used a reliability of 45%, which is the reliability on average from 2007 to 2021. And it does include 2 cycles of very dry, what are categorized as critical conditions with low reliability. And then this is further reduced under climate change assumptions by 1.5% based on factors provided by the Department of Water Resources. With regards to the Colorado River, the plan assumes for climate change that CVWD will be contributing under the drought contingency plan, will be contributing their portion under the drought contingency plan, with that being approximately 14,000, increasing to 24,000 acre feet per year. So it does consider climate change assumptions for all water supplies. Consultants, which were Todd Groundwater and Woodard and Curran, looked at 5 different scenarios. Again, it includes a baseline scenario where no additional projects or management actions are implemented with and without climate change assumptions. And then it looks at scenarios where near-term projects in a 5-year horizon are implemented, as well as implementing all of the projects that are planned within the 25-year horizon of the plan. And then we looked at an additional scenario that looks at increased water demand from expanded agricultural development in the East Valley. So these scenarios were evaluated using the groundwater model, showing that all scenarios implementing projects and management actions are sustainable with both with respect to groundwater levels and storage, and as such, we would also expect sustainability with regards to subsidence. Under all scenarios that were evaluated using the groundwater model, the implementation of planned projects leads to more inflows to the subbasin than outflows. And projected water demands can be met, including one of the goals of the plan, which is to have a 10% supply buffer for municipal demands. So the GSAs will continue to use an adaptive management approach to ensure ongoing sustainability, including annual reporting on progress, and similarly, evaluation and update of the plan every 5 years as required by SGMA. So in conclusion, the plan update demonstrates that the GSAs can meet the established plan goals, sustainably managing the basin as they have done, and they will be monitoring trends in demand and supply availability to make any adjustments as needed in future updates. So this concludes the presentation for the Indio Sub-Basin Alternative Plan update. Again, happy to take any questions if there are any before the public hearing is open.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you. This is the time and place fixed for the public hearing on the 2022 Indio Sub-Basin Water Management Plan update. Clerk Bermudez, have we completed proper notification of this public hearing?
Yes, Mr. President, we have. A notice of this public hearing was published within the jurisdiction of the district on November 30th, 2021. Furthermore, notice of availability for the review of the 2022 Indio Sub-Basin Water Management Plan update and of this hearing was provided to all the stakeholder list, including cities and counties within the Indio Sub-Basin.
Thank you. I will defer to legal counsel regarding the purpose of today's public hearing.
Yes, a actual public hearing is being held in order to provide members of the public and other interested entities with the opportunity to be heard in connection with proposed adoption of the 2022 Indio Sub-Basin Water Management Plan update. Following the public hearing, the Board of Directors will consider adoption of the 2022 Mission Creek Sub-Basin Alternative Plan update as amended by changes incorporated by the Board of Directors as a result of input received, if any, at the public hearing.
Thank you. I hereby declare the public hearing open and will request that those wishing to speak please give your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We will now hear from anyone who wishes to come forward to speak. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand button and the clerk will call on you. I think we start with the cards.
Sure.
Right?
We do have one, Mr. President, Miss Alina Kalimanis, is that correct?
Yeah.
You'll come up to this seat right here, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. It should be up on that monitor for you as well. Yep.
Okay, that's good. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Powell, board members, staff. My name is Alina Kalamanis, and I'm a full-time resident of La Quinta. I wanted to call your attention to a very disturbing article on the front page of Sunday's Desert Sun. If you haven't seen it, the article is called, "Will Valley's Water Supply Hold Up?" And I can provide Ms. Bermudez the copy of the article if you would like to see it. Environmental reporter Janet Evans talks about 4 proposed water-intensive surf parks and the swimming beach in Rancho Mirage, if all are built, with the 2 biggest surf parks being totally private and not open to the public, it would make the Coachella Valley the surfing capital of the world, because there's no place else where there are that many surf parks. And in the middle of this hot climate, in the middle of the desert, that is just unconscionable. These water projects represent 112.7 million gallons to fill, and as calculated by CVWD, would be 160 million gallons yearly use, including evaporation. And as things get hotter and hotter, evaporation will obviously get more and more. We used, the group I represent is La Quinta Residents for Responsible Development, and we used EPA calculations, which showed at least 6 times as much evaporation than is currently calculated, because it accounts for wind, humidity, temperatures, and so on. So if you do that, that comes to 1 billion gallons of evaporation per year for these water projects. Sarah Spinoza, the senior staff attorney for the Coachella Valley Waterkeepers, received comments on her update to the Indio Sub-Basin report that GSAs do not approve of projects that involved waste and unreasonable use of water. I contend that those projects are an unreasonable use of water. Also, the SWA numbers in the update, I believe, are too high, considering that the last 2 years have been 5% allocation of SWP, and this year is probably going to be, next year will probably be 0. So the numbers that is used in the calculations that Ms. Rodriguez showed are too high. And finally, using the last 25 years of modeling, like is done in this update, does not, and reversing it, does not consider that in 2005, the first part of the 25 years, we only had 99 days over 100. Last year, we had 150 days over 100. So reversing this does not make any sense when you take into consideration the amount of heat we have and the rising temperatures we have every year. So in conclusion, I just want to say, is this a legacy you want to leave as board members, that you're allowing 4 surfing parks and a lagoon? The swimming lagoon itself is 34 acres, which is 28 football fields filled to 12 feet deep of our aquifer water. I mean, this is just something that cannot be reasonable in this day and age, given the climate crisis we're having, the Colorado River crisis we're having. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then our next speaker is on Zoom. I will give her permission, and this is Ms. Natalie Escobedo Garcia. Go ahead, Natalie.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Natalie, and on behalf of Leadership Council, we asked the board to address the following issues before adopting the Indio Subbasin Alternatives Plan. First, the Indio Subbasin agencies have consistently failed to hold meetings or make decisions in a transparent way and accessible way. We are alarmed to know ongoing violations of the Brown Act. We have expressed these concerns to agency staff and have noted no change. Additionally, community engagement and outreach efforts were insufficient. While we acknowledge that the COVID-19 pandemic impacted everyone's ability to engage in person with communities, and we appreciate the virtual workshops that were held by the CDWD GSA in lieu of in-person meetings. These workshops were held during business hours, which are not accessible to many of the communities we work with. Second, while we are very pleased to see that the ECB water supply master plan was incorporated into the water budget, the plan only included permitted mobile home parks. The ECB has very few permitted parks in comparison to the nearly 500 unpermitted parks across the Eastern Coachella Valley. Excluding these parks from consolidation planning massively underestimates the amount of water needed to address drinking water needs in the ECB. Last, the GSAs must ensure that the alternative plans update water allocations are consistent with the reasonable and beneficial use doctrine. In doing so, the GSA must prioritize domestic use of water resources over recreational water use and ensure that SGMA implementation furthers the human right to safe and affordable drinking water. A plan that allows the use of water for non-essential water use at the expense of the use of water for domestic purpose is not consistent with the reasonable and beneficial use doctrine. As it is currently written, we are concerned the plan does not accurately consider the reasonable and beneficial use doctrine of its water resources, especially when it comes to the Colorado River allocations. Furthermore, the alternative plan update must also consider impact on public trust resources, or attempt to avoid, insofar as feasible, harm to public interest in those resources, which the plan currently has not. For further comments, considerations, and recommendations, please refer to our public comment letter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Excuse me. I don't see any other raised hands. If there is someone else on the line that would like to speak in reference to item 11B, please use the raise hand feature. Oh, here we go. Okay, we have Mr. Omar Gastelum. Mr. Gastelum, you're on.
Hello, this is Omar Gastelum. Good morning. I'm here to provide additional comments on behalf of Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. The first is that the current monitoring network is inadequate with respect to groundwater. The system must monitor impacts to groundwater for beneficial users, which include disadvantaged communities on domestic wells to avoid disparate impacts on protected groups. The current monitoring system fails to capture the drinking water impacts to disadvantaged communities and is thus non-compliant with SGMA regulations. The second is that the alternative plan fails to address groundwater quality impacts caused by recharge or overpumping. GSAs have the responsibility to protect water quality from further degradation due to groundwater management practices and must establish sustainable management criteria to prevent degraded water quality. The alternative plan's current SMCs are inadequate in protecting the ECV from further groundwater degradation. In order to comply with SGMA regulation, set a protective minimum threshold, measurable objective, and interim milestones for all constituents with primary drinking water standards that may be impacted by groundwater management activities or failure to manage groundwater in a way that does not negatively impact groundwater quality. And two, a detailed explanation as to how the groundwater quality minimum threshold, measurable objectives, and interim milestones will result in the protection of groundwater for disadvantaged communities and other drinking water users in the subbasin. As was stated before, for further comments and recommendations, please refer to our public comment letter. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we have other speakers, please use the raise hand feature.
Do we have anyone else present in the room that wishing to speak?
We do now, okay. And I don't see any raised hands at this time. Okay.
Seeing no others who wish to speak, Clerk Bermudez, have we received any written communications?
Yes, Mr. President, we have received, I believe it was 4 or 5 letters that were included or distributed to the board and available for public review and will be included into the record.
Thank you. I'm prepared to close the public hearing. However, before I do that, I'd like to provide an opportunity for anyone else wishing to provide public input to do so. Is there anyone else wishing to speak today? And if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand button. We don't see anybody. Okay.
I don't see any raised hands.
Thank you. And in that case, I hereby declare the public hearing closed. And so now questions, comments from members of the board, starting with Vice President Estrada.
Yeah, I just, I want to thank all the folks that were involved in putting the document together. It was a tremendous task. I think we have been working on this for almost 2 years now. I know that there was a lot that was done as it related to public outreach, a tremendous amount of effort in putting together the groundwater model to look at the different scenarios. And I guess the thing that I wanted to verify is in summary, I think what I understood from the presentation from Zoe, which was great, thank you, is that based on those water demand projections, whether they're in the near term or the long term, and as those projects are being implemented, I think what I saw just from that slide that I think you showed with those water demand projections and then the water supply available, is that under all those scenarios, even when you account for climate change, our projections are that we have the supply to satisfy all those demands. And so I want to make sure that I understood it correctly. The other thing that I just wanted to make a comment on is that as it relates to, I think, the projects that one of our speakers spoke about related to the surf parks and those type of projects. It's my understanding that those projects are proposed to be satisfied with surface water, so meaning water from the Colorado River and not necessarily water that would be pumped out of the aquifer. So just wanted to make sure that was correct, or at least I was correct in my understanding of things. But other than that, I think staff did a great job. I know that they worked a lot on this over the last 2 years. Zoe, thank you for kind of taking charge and kind of leading the effort, and I think you've done an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the board?
Thank you for the opportunity, John. Again, I'd just like to point out what a good plan it is to work in cooperation with the different agencies across the valley, Coachella, Indio, and water authorities, as well as the cities, and to include the whole public in the process. I think it was a good process. Appreciate the fact that the California State Water Resources Control Board has had opportunities to comment on our plan. Going back to the SIGMA process that started in 2014, we were one of the first of 4 plans to be approved, and it was an alternative plan, which was not under their forms, because we've been managing our water supply since 1906 or something like that, and a long time, with the eye of groundwater management. And certainly up to 2009, we had seen declines in the groundwater aquifer levels, and with the implementation of the Levy facility in the East Valley and the continual use of capturing high flows that we will see in the future with climate change. We'll see a lot of high flow years, and we'll see a lot of dry years. It's pretty amazing that you don't see many years in the middle now. It's either really wet or really dry. And so it's good that we have the capacity to take that water and recharge. When I look at the uses of water, ag's probably facing about a 3% reduction. Urban is about a 30% increase. And in some of those other projects, wave parks or other uses, 14% increase, but it's on just a sliver of our water supply. And so it appears that we have a good balance. I like to think in terms of acre feet, because acre feet means something to me. And when you talk about 160 million gallons, it seems like a lot of water, but when you look in acre feet and you think about that sliver of 14% growth in there, I think we have, from a 30,000 foot level, adjusting for climate change and for potentially dry hydrology, have a good plan that is adaptive, and we can make changes as we go forward. Let's see. I think that's all the comments I had. I want to thank the staff for putting together, I think, a good presentation that tells a good story of our increase in groundwater levels that is taking us well above the benchmarks and the minimum threshold. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
The key words is this is a roadmap and it's adaptive. We're going to update it every 5 years. I think the district has been working on this for more than the last 2 years. We're in a very fortunate position here thanks to a lot of these guys that are on this wall right here, that we're able to live in the desert and be doing quite well. It doesn't mean that it's going to be like this forever. Things may change, but I think the plan addresses some very undesirable probabilities that may come into play here. We all hope not, but I think it takes them into effect. And if a lot of these scenarios come true, then the plan will address those in a way, I think, that we will update or be on top of every 5 years. So I think that this is something to be proud of if you live here in the desert, this plan. I think it's good for the valley, and we should do that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I do appreciate the work, Zoe. Thank you. That you and your team, and Steve Bigley, have been doing for a long, long time on this. And I mean, this is really, you know, the long-term future of our valley is really why I put my effort into this, this board and the work that we do. I do appreciate the commenters also. I think the comments were excellent on a variety of fronts. And we hear you. I'm sorry, the public comment. Oh, we can do that, yeah. No, I understand that. And Zoe, I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to get with Vice President Estrada to address his comment. Thank you. Go ahead.
So public comment has been received during the public hearing, and the board has considered the matter, and based on board comments or questions or answers, this is before the board if the board wishes to proceed.
Thank you. And not just the comments about the wave parks and the likes, but also about disparate outcomes in various parts of the valley. I do appreciate all those comments. I'm sorry, this is. We'll have another opportunity for Director Estrada to comment before we vote. Thank you. And I hope he's still on the line. Yeah, okay. Anyways, I do appreciate the work that you've done in these reports and recognizing, you know, it's just a step along the way of a long path of sustainability. You know, we need to do everything we can, not just to manage the water that we have, but to continue to fight to protect our rights to imported water, because that's the only way that we're able to continue to do the things we do. All right, so do we have any other board member comments before we move to a vote?
I just want to say, I do hear you when you talk about wave parks. We need to be responsible with our water. I get it. I hear you. The board, I think, hears you loud and clear. No. I think that everybody.
And you're being disruptive to the process.
You're right. I think that all the board members here, except for I think Estrada, that is a true statement. What you're saying, they're not using Colorado River. That is groundwater that is being used for those, I believe, for those surf parks. No, is that wrong? Okay.
All right, Zoe, come on up.
So thank you for the opportunity to address Director Estrada's questions. I believe his first question was, does the plan show that with implementation of planned projects and management actions, we will be sustainable? And the answer is yes. We can meet the projected demands due to growth, and you know, we have a good plan in terms of planning for the short term. Notice we picked 5 years because we will look at our progress in 5 years. So we also have longer term projects that will add added resilience as well as any potential additional growth. And I will just note very quickly that we did model a scenario that has additional growth of 40,000 acre feet for agriculture, because we all know what's happening with agriculture in California, and we wanted to make sure that we're prepared if there's any influx. But you can also take that same scenario and look at that additional demand coming from municipal. And, you know, just really if you take that step of the imagination, even though we attribute it to ag, we are prepared with those additional projects for being resilient if growth happens faster, et cetera. So that addresses that comment, hopefully, and if Director Estrada has any follow-up questions, I can answer them. With regards to the surf parks, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. The majority of them are planning on using Colorado River water. Some of them currently with the distribution system don't currently have access, but have began some conversations to look at the availability of getting Colorado River water. So if the question is, can they? Yes, they can. And while that is not something that we can consider when doing water supply assessments per se directly, we do have information from conversations that the majority of them are planning to use Colorado River water and not aquifer water. And Colorado River water does get recharged into the aquifer as well. So I hope that addresses the question, and I'm happy to take any follow-up questions if there are any.
Zoe, that addresses my question, and I think I'm hearing you say what I thought I was understanding, and that's that as it relates to all our demand projections, which include a bunch of different things and a bunch of different projects, whether it's municipal growth or agricultural reduction or increase, we've taken all that into account. And not only have we done that, but we've also taken into account a 10% buffer. So I think that in general, what I'm getting from the plan is that we're prepared. We understand what the projected demands are. We understand what proposed projects are. And what the plan is showing is that we can be sustainable. And we have projects in place that we can implement to be able to meet those demands. And so I think that's what I'm getting out of this plan, and it's because of that reason that I believe that we have been thorough, and we've been doing this. Director Bianco said, we've been doing this for more than 2 years. I was talking about just this particular effort as related to this plan update, but he's right. The water district has been doing this way before Sigma, and so I feel very comfortable that we've accounted for a lot of projected growth, and so I'm happy that we were thorough in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. At this time, the board is asked to consider the adoption by resolution of the 2022 Indio Subbasin Water Management Plan update and to authorize staff to provide notification of this approval and adoption to the Department of Water Resources, including a copy of the resolution, the adopted alternative plan update, and any additional information and documentation required by law, and to direct staff to file a notice of exemption with Riverside, Imperial, and San Diego County clerks within 5 working days after adoption of the resolution. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And roll call vote, please.
President Powell?
Aye.
Vice President Estrada?
Aye.
Director Bianco?
Aye.
Director Aguilar?
Aye.
And Director Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
That passed 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Onward. We had a couple of items of written communications that would fall under agenda item 12A. Kind of curious about the answer on Mr. Nelson's letter. Maybe somebody can share that with us at some later time.
I believe Katie's staff will be responding, and once they do, a copy of that response will be forwarded to the board.
Yeah, essentially that comes under the city code enforcement. The cities have adopted all of our landscape ordinance, and we do not have a code enforcement ability. So
Right.
Again, it falls back to the cities.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
No relation.
No, yeah, I saw that. pretty funny. There's somebody commenting on the Desert Sun article with my login ID.
Really?
Really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they just allow the same ID for multiple people or what, because it wasn't me.
Well, I do have a brother named Steve, so.
I know. All right, so this brings us to our action items. Let's see, we have 13A through G.
And because we're still a little pressed for time, we've got a couple ordinances we've got to go through. I would ask the staff to just briefly introduce a topic and ask the board if they would like a presentation or have any questions. You don't need to read the BAI memo to the board members.
Right, yeah, because we already have it in our packet and it's on the website. Yeah.
read it.
So 13A, yeah, we're going to keep this moving if we can.
All right.
Morning, Elmer.
Good morning. Good morning, President Powell and Board of Directors. I'm Alex, the Assistant Director of Engineering Services and Planning. The item I bring before you is to authorize the General Manager to execute the Special Domestic Water System Installation Agreement with GHA Montage PD LLC. Would the board like a presentation? I'm also available to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent presentation, thank you.
I'll move the item 13A.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any comments, Director Estrada?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. On to the vote then. Roll call vote, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Excellent work, Elmer.
5-0.
Let's see who's on the next one. Dan Ruiz, 13B. Go ahead. This is the ion exchange plant.
Yes, good morning. I've got the next three, so I'll try and beat Elmer's record here. So this is to approve solicitation of bids for our IXTB 7991 in Mecca, and also to authorize the general manager to negotiate a funding agreement with the County of Riverside to fund the construction of this facility.
Yeah, essentially, the county is interested because it expands our ability to deliver domestic water to this geographic area in the hopes of allowing them to fund more affordable housing.
Right.
So I think it's a good move for both parts.
Yes, I agree. Is there a motion?
Great project.
Yeah, good. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
And, you know, I think on C, because of, I have a property interest in the near vicinity of this project, I'm going to recuse and step out of the room. So go ahead, go ahead, Directors, or Vice President Estrada.
Yes, well, we can start as soon as President Powell's
Okay,
desire.
very good. So the board saw this project on September 28th where they provided authorization to go out to bid. So this is really to demolish the elevated blue steel tank that you see in the photo on our Coachella campus. The total project cost to demolish this tank is $155,000.
Okay, I think we've seen this a few times now, and we've had several discussions. So if we could get a motion.
I'll move approval, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Second.
Those Nelson and Aguilar.
Yep. Ready for
Director
the...
Aguilar, you have a comment, or?
No, Vice President, I just made the second.
Okay.
It's a sad
Do the roll call then.
Thank you. Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes 4-0, and then there he is, President Powell's coming in.
Okay.
So on to D. Go ahead, Dan.
Item D, yes. So this is to request authorization to execute a consulting agreement with Albert A. Webb Associates to do the planning phase for phases 3 and 4 of our Highway 86 transmission main project. This work will identify a pipe alignment, do the environmental docs. We've received a grant for almost $500,000 to help fund portions of this work. I am requesting a budget amendment from restricted reserves in the amount of $350,000 this year to help fund a portion of this project.
Thank you.
Dan, does this project, will this complete the expansion or will there be a phase 5?
This will complete the expansion. So this will take the pipeline from roughly 84th Avenue all the way down to Salton City to our Reservoir 1092 site.
Okay.
Good.
And I'll come back in the future for a design phase in the next several years.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve? I mean, what's the timeline on this whole project? I mean, when's it going to be finished?
So the planning phase to identify pipeline alignment and to do the environmental is probably going to be about 2 years or so. There's probably going to be right-of-way acquisition. After that, we'll seek funding to help fund the design and construction. So this is probably a 5+ year project.
Wow. Okay.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
We have two.
That's what I wanted to hear. Roll call, please.
Sure. President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
Thank you. That passed 5-0.
Thanks, Dan.
William Patterson coming up for E.
Come on down.
Certify the mitigated negative deck and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Airport Boulevard Sewer Project and provide authorization. I'm saying it while you're walking, so you don't have to say it. And provide authorization for staff to file the notice of determination to complete the secret review process and meet federal requirements under the NEPA for grant funding eligibility. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks. That's it. There's also a presentation and attached materials if you'd like me to go into that.
Right, and just for the record, because there is a presentation in the packet and all the backup documentation is in the agenda packet for this type of a CEQA action, the board has been fully briefed and can proceed to take action. There's no need for a formal presentation if all the items and information has been given to the board, and it has.
Yes,
Thank you.
it has. Appreciate that.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion.
Is there,
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. All right. Roll call vote, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Passed 5-0. Moving on to F. Go ahead, William.
The staff recommendation for this item is to certify the mitigated negative declaration and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for Booster Station 5513 and Reservoir 5514-2. Provide authorization to CBWD staff for filing the notice of determination to complete the CEQA review process for the project and meet federal requirements under the National Environmental Policy Act for grant funding eligibility.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay. Just reminding myself of where we are here. Yep, got it. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Same comments on the prior item, right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
As far as the fact that we've already reviewed it. Roll call vote, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
And one more.
And one more. The staff recommendation here is to certify the mitigated negative declaration and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for reservoirs 4711-3 and 4711-4 to provide authorization for the staff to file a notice of determination with the Riverside County Clerk to complete the CEQA process and meet federal requirements for grant funding eligibility and meet the National Environmental Policy Act requirements.
Thank you.
I'll move approval. Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second.
And the same comments on level of review.
Yes. Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Yes. President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
thank you. Director Bianco, Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
Thanks, William.
Thank you.
There's our 5-year CIP right there.
Not yet, we gotta get the funding.
Fast.
So true. Okay, Carrie, so we have, now we have these ordinances for adoption, and just as a reminder, we've had a couple of reports on this already, so I just want to comment that I appreciate the response that staff has made, I think I said this last time, to our comments to adjust. I've also had some input from James and Gretchen from DVBA, and I think it gets us, at least gets me where I needed to be, so I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. There's a slide that summarizes, and that's the limit of my presentation. So basically, we're just asking the board to adopt the changes to the water system backup facility charge, to implement the water demand offset fee, and eliminate the supplemental water supply charge, adopt changes to the domestic water design criteria, and approve ordinance number 1399.14, which amends parts 145 and appendix A-14 of the regulations governing domestic water service. So we have this slide here that shows the 2012 developer fees in comparison to the 2021 proposed developer fees, and how the fees apply to a typical single-family residential unit. And then we also have, just for comparison purposes, if that residential unit happened to have like non-potable water serving their outdoor landscaping. So, and as President Powell mentioned, we've worked with the DVBA closely. They did provide a letter of support, and also Mrs. Gretchen Gutierrez is here today in case there's any additional questions. But that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And if I may, in terms of public notification for this, what the government code requires for these types of fees is that notice be given in advance to those who have requested information along the way, and that's certainly been done here with the interested parties, and that a public meeting be held. This is certainly a public meeting, and that any public comment be taken prior to board consideration.
Yeah, thank you. I know we have do we have any members of the public wishing to comment before we take action?
We do, Mr. President. We have Gretchen. Ms.
And I know I see this
Gutierrez.
letter. I see this letter that in bold face type says DVBA supports the adoption of these fee studies in support of the pros fee. But come on up.
Thanks for your patience.
Hey, yeah, actually you could catch you sounding like a working seal right at the moment. He's suffering from bronchitis, so that's why.
Oh.
Can we get your mic on, Gretchen? I'm sorry, please. Thank
Blue light. Oh, okay, there we go. All right, good morning all. My name is Gretchen Gutierrez. I'm the CEO of the Desert Valley Builders Association. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak this morning. I will be brief. Yes, we're supportive of this. It has taken us several years to get to this stage. A number of those categories we've had concerns over for the last couple of years. You see it noted in our article letter to you today. James has worked very closely with your staff, with Carrie, very diligently on all of these items for the last couple of years, even predating COVID and everything else that has gone on. So we're appreciative of the engagement. We're appreciative that you listen to us. And most importantly, let's adopt this and move on to other more critical needs that we need to be addressing. So Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'm staying through the end of this vote. That's it.
Keep an eye on us. So, any other members of the public wishing to comment?
I don't see anybody online. If any of the attendees online would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. And I do not see any raised
Do we have any
hands.
other board comments or questions before we go to the vote?
I think it was a
Yes,
very.
Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm with Carrie if anything has changed since the last time we saw this item, if all the fees are the same.
Correct, nothing has changed since the last presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so this was a very iterative?
Iterative.
Irritated? Irritated?
Iterative.
It was an irritating.
Or was it iterative?
Irritated. I can't even say it.
Iterative.
Irritative, yeah.
We know what you mean.
It was a very back and forth process, and
Feedback
we
loop.
spent a couple of meetings on this, as well as all your staff time in addition to that. And I appreciate the flexibility of looking at things differently, and I think the outcome is good. You know, whether it went up or down, I think we had a solid basis on the thinking process through that, and the issues were well defined, and it came up with this. And so this is what we have, and I'm fully supportive of it.
I think you wanted to say it had a good feedback loop.
There you go. Irritative.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would move the ordinance approval.
I'll second.
Any other comments? Okay, roll call vote, please.
President Powell?
Aye.
Vice President Estrada?
Aye.
Director Bianco?
Aye.
Director Aguilar?
Aye.
And Director Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we also have the sanitation capacity charge.
Right.
Go ahead, Carrie.
So it's recommended that the Board of Directors adopt the changes to the sanitation capacity charge and approve ordinance 1427.3, amending Table A-2 of the regulations governing sanitation service.
And I would make the same comments regarding the compliance with public notice requirements.
Mm-hmm. And I would make the same comments about appreciating the input and response to that. Do we have any public comment on this? No? Similar letter of support from DVBA is in the packet.
And I don't see any raised hand features. If any of the two attendees would like to speak on this item, please use the raise hand feature. I do not see any.
I have the wrong one here. Yeah, okay, so we're good. We could have put that same slide up, I guess, but
The slide applies as well.
There you go.
Shows the change in the sanitation capacity charge. It's
right,
actually going down.
right.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Good. In that case, let's go to a roll call vote.
President Powell?
Aye.
Vice President Estrada?
Aye.
Director Bianco?
Aye.
Director Aguilar?
Aye.
And Director Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. And that passes 5-0.
Thanks, Carrie.
At this time, the board will recess and convene as the Public Facilities Corporation. We do this every year, and all we really do is approve the minutes from the last meeting, and the last meeting was approving the minutes from the meeting before. If I'm missing something here,
I think you got
that's
it, sir.
pretty much it. Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
So there's a motion and a second to approve item 15A. Roll call, please.
President Powell?
Aye.
Vice President Estrada?
Aye.
Director Bianco?
Aye.
Director Aguilar?
Aye, but I just want to confirm, I believe was this my first meeting? Because I don't want to vote on something that I wasn't present for, so.
I think
This was my first meeting. That's,
I think you were not at that meeting.
You were not.
well, then I need to abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
That's
good
okay.
catch.
Is it after that?
Good catch.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You came in right after that.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you were in the audience.
Being heavily scrutinized.
No, and so we'll just note for the record that the vote that Director Aguilar.
There's an abstention. All right, so do you have everybody? Is that 4?
Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's approved 4-0 with 1 abstention. With no further business, we adjourn as the Public Facilities Corporation and reconvene as the Board of Directors. And so now, board member general comments. Why don't we start with Vice President Estrada?
Or not.
I don't, I had a comment, but I can't remember what it was, so I'm gonna skip.
Thank you. Director Nelson?
Just a couple things. Congratulations to Camille Tootin, who was officially confirmed as the Commissioner of Bureau Reclamation. She's been acting in that capacity. I have about 12 meetings to report on. I think she was in most of them. So congratulations to her. And coming back into the administration, Michael Connor has been confirmed as the Assistant Secretary for the Army of Civil Works. So we have a water guy in the Civil Works Department. As you know, he was the Commissioner of Reclamation and also the Assistant Deputy of the Secretary of the Interior. So he's been there for a while. So anyway, those two people of note in the federal government.
Good. Director Aguilar?
No comments.
Director Bianco?
I just want to say, we went through a lot of these things, big things, action items, and I think pretty fast. But we've seen these things a lot over the last year. So this is kind of the culmination of staff and the board working together to put these things together, and that this has been a lot of hard work to get to this point, although it seemed like it wasn't because we were very fast about it. I just wanted to say a little bit more about Director DeClotz. He was a personal friend, 25 years. I was not on the board when he was here, but I heard that he was a great director. But more importantly, he was a fantastic father and husband, and just a tragedy happened in our desert, and he will be sorely missed by a lot of people. Pray for him, like President Powell said. That's all we can do.
Yeah. I just reflecting on that. I mean, and Franz worked for me for the last year and a half at my company selling produce. And it was really interesting because we've all known each other for so long, and it was like he'd been there forever. It was so easy. He was so good at what he did. I remember the time that I came back onto the board here in 2010, and he was already on the board. I think he'd been here for a couple of years. And to see him and Corky Larson beat up that budget, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. They were budget hawks, and I learned so much from both of them about how, not always to just go with the flow and accept staff's recommendation on how to manage the district, because the staff has a very different, maybe a different responsibility and a different point of view than an elected board member. And I mean, we're really accountable to the people and the ratepayers and the taxpayers, and yet we're still doing our best to keep the district running. Anyways, the two of them, I got to say both of them, because they were there at the same time. They really opened my eyes. I learned a lot from Franz about how to say no, how to question, and how to find a better way. Yeah.
All right, so you guys open the floodgates. I got 3 more things to say. So he was on the Colorado River Board for a couple years, and he did a tour for the Colorado River Board and for a number of Basin statespeople of Bagdasarian's lemon packing facility and the grapes cold storage. And he was a salesman. He was such a personable person that he just made a lot of good friends across the basin in that capacity. But I remember that tour, and everyone was so happy that they got a bag of lemons. And it was really cool. And then he and I were kind of hawks on the pension obligations, and we actually went to Orange County and worked with the Hoover Commission on looking at some pension reforms and to try and control some costs across the state, with CalPERS and the teachers' pensions. And, there was actually some action made out of that. And not that I take any credit at all, but we were supporters of how can we do things differently that, helps to protect the public at large and also offer employees a solid retirement package and so forth. So we had some good times doing that together. So he was quite a guy. I graduated from Fresno State. I think we were in the same class, so it was rather interesting. Yeah.
Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Director Powell, I'll add some comments. I do want to extend my sincere sympathy to his family, and I got to meet him and work with him through the growers meeting that we've had over the past 6 years. And I would get together with him from time to time to talk about his experience at the district, and I certainly learned a lot from him. And we actually made it a point to start getting together more often once he started working with you, President Powell, being that he was here in Coachella. And so we tried to have lunch together. He wanted to try out new places, so we were kind of trying to make that a habit. And the last place that we went was here at a local restaurant in Coachella where they sell tacos de borrego. Those are lamb tacos. And he had them. He had never had them, and he really, really enjoyed them. So it was a great spending time with him. So I'm surely going to miss him. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for the comments. On to meetings. Why don't we go? Let's see, Director Aguilar, you have the first one.
I do, and I'll be brief. I know you guys are up against a deadline here. So I did attend the and was able to stay for the entire Headwaters Tour virtual journey on the 9th. And that was mostly discussion focusing on watersheds, which serve as a starting point for much of our water supply, particularly up north. John Andres with the Department of Water Resources discussed climate adaptation. It was really interesting. Someone did on the webinar pointed out that since 2018, the fires in California burned over half of the Feather River watershed, which was very troubling to hear. But because of implementation of good forestry practices, that there's been an overall increase of actually almost 18% in the water yield. So that was good to hear as well. So it was very good.
Thank you. Colorado River Board on the 10th, November 10th.
Costello, you have anything to say before I start?
No, I think, for me, I really enjoyed how the different agencies kind of give a report of their water situation, and that's what we saw here. It's a report from folks managing the Colorado River and folks managing or working to the Metropolitan Water District. I think the thing that I took away, a lot of it was related to the conversations and comments that Director Nelson has been sharing with us regarding the what do you call it? What are we calling that? The 500 plan or the five? Anyways, it's a plan to cut back. And but I recall the thing that kind of struck me was this well, I think the meeting was right when Metropolitan Water District, I think, issued their emergency declaration. But one of the things that I heard at the meeting was that I think they're having trouble moving the water. So they have water, but they just can't move it through the system. So I think it just makes me think about all these deals that as a district we're trying to get into as it relates to sites, reservoir. And, we might have the ability to create water, but it just means that, like, we really need to work on figuring out how to move it. There seems to be a limitation on the capacity of that infrastructure. So that's what I recall. Would be interested in learning more about, the whole issues with around being able to move water when you have it somewhere, but you can't move it. It doesn't sound like a good story.
Yeah, it was an update on hydrology. As you know, October was rather wet, and then November was pretty dry. So we heard of that hydrology, and we did discuss the 500 plus plan, which is a plan that's put out there as of a goal of trying to save 500,000 acre feet in 2022, and then another 500,000 acre feet in 2023, and reporting that DWR had put up their 40 million, Central Arizona project had put in 20, and Nevada had put in 20, and Metropolitan Water District will be contemplating approving another 20 at their meeting in December. So talked about that. It strikes me as amazing that Metropolitan is using less than their average amount month over month. And it's a testament to their projects there, which conservation projects and so forth, which are good. And so that was the meeting.
Just a quick poll. So next Colorado River Board meeting is at Crua in Vegas. Who's going to Crua? I'm just curious. I'm going. I'm planning to go.
I'm going.
I believe all but Director Aguilar. So, okay. So we're planning at least four. Okay. Just curious. November 10th, we have this water treatment. I'm not sure what this was a meeting.
This is actually it was a webinar, but I only caught part of that, largely because I had been invited to sit in a webinar as a member of the National Latino Elected Officials Group from the White House on the new infrastructure bill. So that was really interesting. They talked about specific set-asides particularly for disenfranchised communities, and I think that's going to be a big help to our work here in the East Valley. They did also talk about the funds going largely to transformative projects, so we'll be thinking about how creative we can get with our project titles, and that they're now working on the implementation bills going forward. So it was very interesting.
Thank you. We have the Disadvantaged Communities Infrastructure Task Force on November 16th.
Dr. Powell, I think your mic.
I shut it off because I was, thank you, my mic. The Disadvantaged Communities Infrastructure Task Force on November 16th, I attended that by phone. Director Estrada, I can't remember who was there in person. I think you might have been.
I was there in person. We went over the projects in the queue. I think we had a good discussion on the Avenue 66 project and an update on all the kind of different budgets that are being put together to make that project real. And I think we got an update on the $7 million that was appropriated through the state budget. We're tracking the additional dollars that I don't know if there's been a resolution on the additional monies that we were going after through Congress. But good meeting, good updates. I think we had a conversation on the IXTP plant, on the item that we just approved today, so it was a good meeting.
Thank you. November 18th, Director Aguilar had a,
That was largely discussion on climate change.
okay, good.
I was not there for the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission.
Okay.
I was there for the Living Desert. Going over the last years, the Living Desert is thriving since the pandemic. If you haven't been over there to see the new rhinos, there's a boy and a girl. They're
How can you tell?
They're young. One came from Ohio and another one came from either Tennessee. They'll live separately for the next 3 or 4 years, and maybe we'll have our own baby rhinos. But they're pretty impressive. I think they're close to a ton, and they're babies. The Living Deserts is thriving. It's been some of the best zoos in the world. Can you believe is in our backyard here in the desert? It's just unbelievable. I mean, I used to go to the zoo when I was 6, 7 years old, and it had a reptile area, and that's about it.
That little blackwood or spider in the entryway, remember?
So I mean,
Love that.
their big campaign now is parking. So I mean, they need a parking structure, and they have money to do it, and that's the next project. So they're working on that. So a lot of good things over there in our valley, which is for all of us, which is great.
Right. Let's see, we had this November 30th meeting at Classic Club with folks from the Berger Foundation. And I was there, Director Bianco, and several of our staff and Jim were there. I think that they just wanted to hear that we're doing something. And I mean, obviously they have some stormwater issues in that area. The Berger Foundation just acquired some more property on the west side of the Ivy Ranch. So they're kind of expanding, and there's a lot going on over there. I mean, they've got the construction of the hockey arena, which is huge, and then they have a lot of other things coming along sort of on the heels of that. So I think they mentioned Top Golf, and there's probably all kinds of things they can do there. But it was more just a information sharing. I think they seemed very appreciative of that. We'll keep those lines of communication open. I mean, the bottom line is there's a tremendous amount of need and a limited amount of funding throughout the valley for stormwater. So it's kind of just, you do what you can, and then you wait for more funding, and then you do a little more. December 1st, Golf and Water Task Force. I was on that call, as was, I believe, Director Bianco. Were you on there? Yeah. We got the updated numbers. They're not bad. The conservation numbers, they're not bad. For the golf industry. I mean, you can tell there's a commitment. I think Craig Kessler does a good job representing the SCGA in that regard.
They're going to make a concerted effort to go after golf here and try and, hey, come on, guys, let's do better.
Use a little less water. I had one other meeting that didn't make it on there. I think Costello was on this meeting also, where we had on the 24th of November, we had a phone call with the attorneys on the Agua Caliente mediation. A lot of the same items that we discussed today. It was kind of before they went back in for some of their the meetings they had since the 24th. Any other meetings need to be reported on?
Unfortunately, President Powell, I have a little list that I submitted on December 1st, and apparently I didn't make it to the agenda, but here we go.
Go ahead.
So on November 12th, we had a 7 Basin States Department of Interior Bureau Reclamation principals meeting. That was on Zoom, and a lot of these meetings have the same topic. And as Jim knows, that we'll discuss the same topic ad nauseum, and we'll have a principals meeting where the 7 Basin States principals, and I'm usually assisted by Chris Harris on those. Representing California, and then the other Basin State principal, John Insminger,
Tom
Becky
Buchatsky.
Mitchell, Gene Shawcroft, Tom Buchatsky. Usually Ted Cook is there as well. And so we get together and we'll kind of set the agenda for then the 7 Basin States meetings, and then we'll go through that process again. So it's a little bit frustrating that some of this is redundant and it takes some time, but there's also issues that pop up that are somewhat contentious between the Upper Basin State and the Lower Basin states. So it can be challenging, but we met that day and trying to set the agenda for later on in November, which we did. Then that was November 12th. On November 15th, I went to Sacramento for a California Farm Water Coalition board meeting. We were actually flying out of Bakersfield. Everybody drives to Bakersfield, and we were delayed by fog for several hours. But I did make the end of the business meeting, and then we took a tour of the Mozak Museum. It's the Museum of Science and Curiosity. Had just opened 3 days prior. And as you may know, the Farm Water Coalition has been a big supporter of that museum in order to have a meeting place for water people, local legislators can come over and look at it. And as you probably have been to big cities that have a hands-on museum for youth, it's that as well.
Interactive, yeah.
Very interactive. There's a section on power, there's a section on water, there's a section on nature, there's a section on building and construction and engineering. So they have a planetarium there as well. And it's quite a first-class facility. And the Water Coalition has been able to have great input on the data used in the water area there, in that water space. And they have some very cool exhibits where you can look at California water footprint over history. And they have a digital map that then puts it out on a screen that you can walk on and the kids can jump on. But it's a very high definition setup, and it's really cool. And you can look at the history of the before the projects. You can look at where the water projects are now and what the future looks like in a drier climate changed hydrology. And so it's cool. And then there's a number of exhibits that you can choose your menus, and it will show you your water footprint and what water takes to produce crops, and it'll show you, well, am I eating a lot of water or not eating water? But I think it's an excellent exhibit in the fact that it makes that connection that by growing and eating food, is a consumption of water, and so I think that's a good connection. So it was a good tour for that day. That was on November 15th, and then on the 16th, I had a number of conversations and telephone calls with Metropolitan Water District about the 500 Plus plan and what their thinking is on that with Hazenkamp and what their process was going to be. Looking forward to that. Then on the 17th, I was able to connect up November 17th with Imperial Irrigation District. Both with Tina and Henry Martinez to talk about what that might mean for Imperial Irrigation District moving forward in trying to address conservation programs in the future. On November 18th, which their board is really driven by, I think, grower input down there. So on the 18th, I attended the Imperial Irrigation District Water Advisory Committee down there to hear what the growers are thinking about the 500 Plus plan, conservation plans in Imperial Valley, which was actually very beneficial to hear some of the issues that they have brought up about that. On the November 19th, we had a principals meeting via Zoom, really focusing on planning what the CRUA participation would be next week, what the process was going to be. We're looking at 3 issues there, some kind of agreement with the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, in looking forward to both the 500 plus plan and the 2026 renegotiations there, and trying to have some kind of agreement that, yeah, we're going to work with the NGOs. Also, trying to figure out how to best present the tribal involvement piece with that. And it appears that we'll have 2, maybe 3 tribes that have agreements right now to have conservation programs that put water into the Arizona space, so to reduce their use into the 500 plus plan, as well as into their tier 1 shortage obligation under the DCP. So that's, and then the other piece was for a memorandum of understanding for the states to be working together on this, on the 500 plus plan. And so those are the 3 items that we plan on presenting on I think it's Wednesday. At the luncheon. So there's a lot of messaging issues with that as well. And then that was on the 19th. I had 2 more. On November 22nd, we then had to re-talk about those issues because the Upper Basin was a little nervous about what we were coming up with regarding the 500 plus plan and getting ahead of the Upper Basin. And in my humble opinion, I think that stems from the fact that the Lower Basin is taking this very seriously and trying to identify pots of water wherever we can to conserve, to put up money to conserve. And the Upper Basin is planning. And so I think that's an issue there that we have with them. And then on November 30th, we had a specific Basin States meeting with the Department of the Interior and the Bureau of Reclamation and as principals, talking about the tribal involvement piece and trying to make sure that across the CRUA platform that we're integrating in. As you know, Deb Holland is making this a initiative that's very important to Interior, and so we're discussing how to do that at the CRUA event. So that completes my report for the last month, and there were several others. I'm not going to bother you.
Well, thank you for being out there and working these issues. It's a lot of effort. I appreciate it.
It really is.
Somebody's got to do it, and you're the right guy. So, yeah, lucky you. Any other meetings before we vote? No.
President, I do have a few meetings.
Go ahead.
On Friday, November 5th, I had a meeting with the executive director of WOW, that's the Water Education for Latino Leaders. I've been helping them over the past years put together a visit to the Valley to learn about water issues. Director Nelson has been involved in that the last few years. He does he's been able to do the update on Colorado River issues. So they're getting ready to do another visit in January. So they wanted to talk about how to put that together. What they do is they get a bunch of elected officials across the state, whether they're newly elected water board members or council members or school board members. They try to they have this program where they visit 6 different locations across the state to try to get a sense of the different water issues in these different areas. So that was that meeting. On November 18th, I had the Safer Advisory Group meeting number 3. That's part of the group that I'm involved in at the state level as it relates to the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Act and the dollars that were appropriated to that program. And so we had that meeting. And then you've already mentioned the meeting we had on the 24th. And then on November 30th, I had a meeting with the president of the College of the Desert to discuss the East Valley campus. As you're aware, there's been a tremendous amount of media coverage related to the College of the Desert, their proposed projects. There's been projects, I think, that have been proposed in Cathedral City. There's been projects that have been proposed in Palm Springs. And so I just wanted to make sure that the newly elected president was aware of efforts for East Valley campus in Mecca and some of the history as it relates to our involvement with that campus and the agreements that we have for water service, the potential infrastructure improvements that would be required to make that campus a reality. At one point, that campus was proposed to be a 7,500 student campus, and it didn't really turn too much. The campus is still just a few temporary trailers. I believe it's not connected to sewer, and so it's still on septic tanks. And so just wanted to make sure that she was aware of those efforts that folks were working on over 10 years ago. So that was those were my meetings.
Thank you. All right, I think that covers it. Is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
and Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
That's 5-0. General Manager.
Yes, sir. I'd first like to also offer my condolences to the DeClotz family. We'll try and figure out when the services are, and then see if there's a charity we can make a donation to in his name, or provide flowers, whatever the preference is. I'd also like to say goodbye to Katie. See ya. She's actually not going anywhere until maybe first or second week of January. We're still trying to work that out, so there's still a chance it could fall through. I saw Rosalind here earlier. Katie is going to work for a consultant, so she will be available to us as we need her at a slightly different cost. I would also like to thank the board for allowing us to move quickly through today's agenda. It was a little daunting when Sylvia and I looked at what staff was intending to do today. But I think we did a very good job, and I appreciate your ability to work through those. If there are issues in the future, we will try and do a little bit better job in putting these agendas together to not force you to move through these without having time to fully consider items. I'm not suggesting that that was the case today. I think we provided ample opportunity moving, that today was going to be tough. So for me, we have on the COVID update, we've had 127 recovered qualifying cases. We've currently got 2 and 2 direct contacts. So we've got 4 off work. So far for the month of December, we've had 2. When we look at vaccinations, we are asking employees to bring in proof of vaccination. We've had 371 employees so far. I think the current on board is about 549. So a little bit better than half. We have had exemptions submitted for review. We have not started that process yet because we still don't know what the federal government is actually going to require. We've had 21 exemptions, 2 for medical, 19 for religious reasons. Again, right now, our understanding is that the federal government will require us as federal contractors to have employees fully vaccinated by January 18th, although there are a number of initiatives in DC as well as lawsuits around the country. So we're following that with very closely. We expect to bring to the board, if we remain on this current schedule, our expectation is to have a policy available for the board to consider an open session on January 11th.
Okay.
That's all I've got, sir.
Thank you. Council comments.
Yes, I will pass in the interest of time today, Mr.
Do we have any departmental reports?
No, but the departments are all represented
Pretty
tough. Wow.
Must be missing somebody.
here. HR.
Yeah. He's busy denying exemption requests, right? I'm just kidding. Just my position is that we should be as fair as possible, as fair as possible. All right, well, that brings us to the end of today's agenda, and hearing no objection, we are adjourned.
Goodbye.